had to take my shoes off just so that way I can at least kind of be grounded. um, so after coming back from a sabbatical, I took a 30-day moment to just figure out life and who I actually was. And I remember after coming back and sitting at my desk in front of my laptop, trying to figure out how am I going to come out again. How am I going to communicate to my colleagues, the community, that I now go by a whole new name, whole new pronouns, and I was kind of swept away from the trauma of first coming out in 8th grade. And I remember Jayden, just do the things, type the email. And I crafted this really simple email a couple of times, really simple email saying, hi, my name is Jayden. My new name is Jayden Ruff. My pronouns are she, her. And thank you so much, comma, Jayden. And I hit send. And what I will tell you is it started to be the first time where I started to trust my quote unquote support system. And at that time, so many people were reaching out and saying, how can I show up for you? And I'm grateful to have a colleague, my partner in crime, Laura, who was one of the first people that said, like, how do you want to do this? Like, is it okay for me to carry the message? Because I was talking about, like, I feel this massive pressure of having to transition in public, having to, like, answer the question over and over again, having to introduce myself, and also, like, the curiosity that comes from knowing a person that is trans. And so I asked him, I said, will y'all please carry the message for me? Like, can y'all tell people that I've transitioned? Can y'all tell people that my name is Jayden and my pronouns are she, her? And it kind of took this massive pressure off my shoulders. And I remember sitting in the parking lot at Safeway in North Bend, because that's my Safeway. That's my, like, y'all shop there, but that's my place, right? And I remember sitting in, like, leaving the house, and I was on the phone FaceTiming with my best friend Patrick, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm about to go to the grocery store. I had to go to the pharmacy, and I remember sitting in my car, and he was like, Jayden, why aren't you out of the car yet? And I took a deep breath, and he said, what, you scared? And I said, I am. I hadn't realized that this would be my first experience going into a grocery store as the person that I've chosen to show up in the world as. And I said, I'm scared. And I remember the lump in my throat, and we're on FaceTime, and he said, girl, we've come too far to go backwards. And if you're afraid about being in those spaces, as simple as a grocery store, which I had made the grocery store to be this massive thing, this really big old thing. And the people were in there like these larger than life creatures that I was afraid of. And he said, well, if you're afraid about being in those spaces, then that means you need to be in those spaces. And what he was saying was, it's okay, because we're going to be scared sometimes, but we navigate the world afraid and do the things in spite of. And so I remember I said, okay, but you're coming with me, and I put my headbuds in, and I grabbed my phone, I grabbed my purse, I threw it over my shoulder, and when I tell you, like, I have never walked so fiercely into a grocery store before, I pumped in the grocery store, and when I got in there, I was like, okay, like, what is my way to actually, like less reactions, less interactions, and go straight to the pharmacy? And I'm like, oh, crap, I'm gonna have to wait in line. There's possibilities that people will see me and they will talk to me, and oh my gosh, and they're scary, and they're gonna ask the questions, and all of these things. And I just had to quiet the noise. And I got into the grocery store, and to my surprise, people were shopping. Like, they were filling up their carts. I don't even think they noticed me, like, and like, no one even asked me, the only interaction I had that day in the grocery store was with the pharmacist. And that was pretty amazing, and what I know to be true at that point, the fear, before going on the sabbatical, I had made people, places, and things and their opinions of me define who I was. And I had to realize that it was really new operating outside of that. And so, while also like recognizing, like I had created these safe bubbles, in early transition, like I would go to my Safeway, I would go to my co-op, I would go to my office, and then I would go back home, or I would go to my friends' houses, and not a lot of people saw me, but what I found out that day was the pressures that I was initially feeling on discovering and developing what womanhood felt like for me, what transhood felt like for me. And I'm a part of a 12-step program, and because I'm a person in recovery, and what I know to be true, like Coos Bay people will like potluck like no other. But if you mention that, hey, like I need clothes because I'm starting off from scratch, like you will get clothes, you will get necklaces, you will get shoes. Like I had to tell people, like, please, I have, like, maybe I'm gonna have like a party so that way we can go through all the things that you've given me, right? But they were what they were teaching me was like it is okay to ask for help, and also like it is okay to utilize the people that you've called to be support people in your life. Another thing is when I remember comparing myself, like, okay, like I became like a woman watcher, like, oh, like she has this, I don't have that yet, or she, it's like wanting like 20 years of trans experience in like 2 days, and and what I know is that I started asking the women that were around me, like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Do you do that too? And they said, oh, honey, yes, And I remember having conversations with my mom. Like, I was an investor, like a womanhood investigator. Like, and what I found out with my mom, she was like, well, if you're going to be a woman, like, you need to make sure you do this, you need to do that. And when I talked to my grandmother, she was like, oh, and I never leave the house without any makeup. And at that time, I was doing the makeup thing. And what I found was I was trying to blend in, so that way, like, I was still operating from a place of safety. And what I had to do was like boycott like makeup products and boycott like this pressure that now I have inherited just because women have been conditioned that you have to show up in the world like this. And so I always say that like I am a trans woman, which means there are certain times and certain things that women experience that I would never have the privilege of understanding or knowing. But that's where it turned into radical feminism. Like, how am I showing up for my women, my femmes, my girls, in my world? And so, and how do I carry their message in solidarity? And so, um, but another thing is like, I was thinking, I'm like, okay, like I still need stuff. And as my mom was like, okay, well, I was like, please stop mailing stuff to my house. Like, this is getting ridiculous. And then my grandmother would like be like, okay, like I'm gonna send you some girdles, and and all the things. And what I was instinctively learning was what it like the pressure of being a woman and navigating through all of the expectations that you have, and the expectations that you have when you show up in rooms and show up in spaces, and well, you're a woman now, you're trying to be a woman, and so you got to do this, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. Like this is a lot, and so shout outs to all my women, my femme, my women X, my girls, my ladies, my femme queens, my trans women. And but what y'all were teaching me was defining community care. Y'all were helping me build trust. Y'all were teaching me how to be vulnerable. Y'all were teaching me how to be like ooze the femininity, like I got the nails, the hair, like all of these things that once upon a time I was so afraid to be. And so y'all have helped me come out of this shell, um, and also misery. Like before I went on that sabbatical, like I was watching all of you like live whatever life y'all were living, and were like, how do they do that? I had wanted to be trans since I saw my first transgender woman and identified like that is me, like that is the missing piece. And I remember getting a tattoo saying, "To thine own self be true." And that was my accountability, not just to showing up as authentically and unapologetically and radical. Like, it should not be radical for me to just exist, right? But I had to hold myself accountable to, like, girl, you're not going back. And so I know that my experience is not, it's unique because I know that, like, my trans experience is not the trans experience of everyone in our communities, and it's nuanced, especially showing up as my full self in a role space. But what I do when I travel, and I talk about the fact that we have like a trans support group and we have pride and we have all of these things that will affirm a person. Um, when I go out in communities and they're like, how is it in Coos Bay? You know, and I'm like, actually, it's pretty amazing and it's really hot here, you know? But I mean, like I say, this is my home. Like what was supposed to be a staycation for a month, just so I can kind of catch my breath, turned out to be 10 years in October, you know, and like it is home. Like this is where when I go out in the world, I can't wait to get back to because I can go to my safe way, and people are, you know, even though they give me the looks because I do shop like 15 minutes before the doors close, um, I can go to my safe way. I can go to my co-op. I can go to my office and my friends' houses. And today I have family here. Like this is my home base, and it's a place that I've found so much value because I also transitioned here. I transitioned publicly whew, here. And yeah, and so what I do know today is because I've had people show up for me in ways that I wouldn't have even imagined would be possible. That is how I get to show up and carry the message for folks who are trans, are gender expansive, are Black, Indigenous, people of color, First Nations people, with that love that I was met with. And so I'm really grateful to be here and to carry the message, and really grateful for the ancestors and the transcestors who wrap around me and give me courage each and every day. Thank you.